And it is such a joy and honor to welcome you to this special occasion, the launch of Jessica Dibb's groundbreaking new book, Breathwork and Psychotherapy. Jessica is a pioneer whose work has touched thousands of lives around the world. For more than 3 decades, she's devoted herself to exploring the most essential, yet often overlooked resource for healing and transformation, the breath. As founder and spiritual director of the Inspiration Consciousness School, and through her leadership in integrative breathwork, Jessica has helped people awaken to their wholeness, heal trauma, and discover the deeper possibilities of being fully alive. With this book, she offers us a gift that is both visionary and practical. Breathwork and Psychotherapy shows how conscious breathing can be integrated with clinical practice in ways that are rigorous, accessible, and profoundly inspiring. Drawing on neuroscience, psychology, and spirituality, Jessica illuminates how the breath can become a catalyst for healing trauma, enhancing resilience, and even awakening higher states of consciousness. What makes this contribution so powerful is not just the depth of Jessica's scholarship, but the depth of her lived experience. She embodies what she teaches. She doesn't simply describe techniques. She invites us into a relationship with the breath as a sacred teacher, a guide that connects us with our humanity, our creativity, and our capacity for love. As you'll hear from her today, this book is more than a professional resource. It's also an invitation to each of us to breathe more fully, to live more authentically, and to engage the healing journey with courage and compassion. So it is with profound excitement and heartfelt gratitude that I invite you to join me in welcoming my dear friend and colleague, Jessica Dibb, and celebrating the launch of Breathwork and Psychotherapy. Jessica?
Thank you so much, Dawn, for that beautiful introduction and for the willingness and presence of you being here. I am beyond grateful to be here with everyone who is gathering today of what I think is a long-awaited book by many, many people, and a book that has been supported by an entire community around the globe, a global community to make this happen. David Byrne of Talking Heads said, "I want to breathe with you," in one of his songs. "Won't you breathe with me?" And I would like to invite us to begin our exploration today, our celebration, our book launch, and our breathing experience that we're going to have by recognizing and being grateful for and becoming aware of and deepening our breath together and breathing together. And what I want us all to consider is that my experience has been that when any two people breathe together, or any 3 or 10 or 100 or hundreds or thousands, something begins to open, something that is more authentic, more present, more real, and more filled with potential than what often happens when we're simply reacting to the conditions that we have experienced in our life from our birth through our present moment. I'm hoping that in addition to this being a book that will support all breathers, everybody on the planet, in knowing the power of breathing and the benefits of breath work and what can open up for them. And in addition to being a manual for how the best practices of psychotherapy and the best practices of breath work can partner each other to create a new generation, a next generation healing and transformational modality. And in addition to being a guide for clinicians about how to use breath work in any kind of work that they're doing, from somatic work to cognitive behavioral therapy. And in addition to being a guide for all breathers about how they can use breathing in a daily way, daily practice, as well as use it therapeutically and use it for expanded states of consciousness. I'm hoping that this book actually helps shift humanity from a culture of fear and personality to a culture of love and creativity. And so I'm honored that you're here with me today, that you're here with me and the community of speakers that we have, because this book is built from community and it is for community, to begin to have a taste of how this book might be able to help with that shift. And so what we're going to do here is I'm going to do 4 readings, short readings. I'll do one, and then we'll have our first speaker for a few minutes. And then I'll do another, and then the next speaker. There'll be a place where I have some acknowledgements of some really people that have contributed to the book that are here on this call today or this Zoom session. And then a third reading and a fourth reading, each followed by one of our speakers on our community. And then I'm going to do a breathing practice. We'll all do one together for about 10 minutes. And then we're going to open up to questions and answers and conversation and input and dialogue, which I'm really looking forward to with all of you. So let's dive in. First reading. All of these readings, so none of these readings are not necessarily all from one chapter. They're different paragraphs from different chapters. And the first topic that I picked to talk about is the unifying nature of breathing. And so what we're going to hear are some different chapters, the introduction, chapter 1, chapter 10, chapter 15, different pieces that talk about the unifying nature of breathing, both for ourselves, like how our somatic, emotional, cognitive capacities can be integrated and unified and working together, how we can be more connected to who we really are instead of our sense of who we've created ourselves to be for other people. And then more importantly, even how we experience our essential unity with all people and all of existence itself, and why breathing is the universal language and the universal medium for experiencing that unity. I would invite all of us, as we're listening to these readings, to breathe deeply in our bodies, as we did together when we started, and to let the words not just be heard cognitively, but be experienced somatically in our bodies and affect our hearts and what it is that our hearts open to and are present to in each moment. This book is offered to every person, to every breather. While reading, hearing, or feeling these words, we are joining 8 billion plus other people, and we are all breathing together. The fruition of a birth happens upon hearing the baby's first breath. New parents tend to watch for their baby's every breath. We notice with respect when someone's breathing is becoming more powerful during acts of athleticism, emergency rescue, and courageous participation. Lovers spontaneously mirror each other's breathing patterns, and in the most intimate moments, breathe each other's breath as one breath. The last breath is listened for with the utmost tenderness, reverence, sometimes fear, or love. Often we don't recognize or honor these truths until we experience something that challenges our breathing. How paradigm shifting it would be for us individually, relationally, and collectively to recognize the potential that dwells within this primary driver of life, breathing. Visionaries and innovators populate the history of human potential healing and psychotherapy, and many have inspired us to re-envision our approaches. Consider the shockwaves and innovation that emerged from Sigmund Freud's radical envisioning of the individual's unconsciousness and psyche. Consider how Carl Jung re-envisioned the psyche, bringing awareness to the collective unconscious, imaginal, and archetypal dimensions in treatment. Subsequent luminaries include Carl Rogers, Murray Bowen, Virginia Satir, Abraham Maslow, Eugene Gendlin, Alice Miller, and others too numerous to name. Today, psychotherapy is impacted by Dr. Daniel Siegel's groundbreaking lens of interpersonal neurobiology, John Kabat-Zinn's seminal work on healing through mindfulness, and many other contributors through work in neuroscience, trauma, understanding, and psychotherapeutic processes. We also build on a lineage of cultures who have utilized breathing as medicine throughout time, including ancient Egypt, shamanic traditions in Africa, Australia, and South and North America, yoga traditions in India, Taoism, and Qigong, 20th and 21st century pathfinders for breathing, including Shirley Tellis, Stephen Elliott, Jack Feldman, James Nestor, Richard Brown, Patricia Gerbarg, Stanislav Grof, Leonard Orr, Sandra Ray, Patrick McEwen, and others too numerous to name. Just when I was fully committing to writing this book and honoring the global groundswell of breathwork, in 2019 and 2020, we encountered 3 waves of breathlessness in 3 pressing issues: health and well-being, equity and human rights, and ecological sustainability and thriving. The breathlessness of COVID-19 induced global awareness of the preciousness of breathing. George Floyd's words, "I can't breathe," became a shot heard around the world, re-energizing movements for racial justice, equity, and related intersectional issues. And unprecedented and devastating forest fires in Europe, Australia, and then the United States erupted, causing toxicity, destruction, and death to plant life and human and non-human animals. By this time, I had experienced breathing as a fundamental medicine, abundant nutrient, and a unifying force for healing and transformation, and a positive force multiplier for individuals, groups, processes, and actions. Breathing is vitally important to everyone, whatever their status, whatever their orientation, history, or aptitude. Healthy breathing and breath work are supremely natural conduits for health equity and equity in general. And so with reverence, I experienced a compelling urge to write about breathing in relation to everyone's value and potential for every being, gnarly or not, kind or not, saint or sinner. and thus the Universal Breathing Declaration was born, expressing every breather's right to breathe safely, optimally, and freely. Dedicated to a world of liberated potential and creativity, the Declaration's orientation advocates for optimal physical, emotional, cognitive, spiritual, and social resources for all, and directs attention to healing and transforming challenges to healthy breathing for all, such as illness, social and economic inequity, war, genocide, and ecocide. Breathing is the greatest equalizer. It both symbolizes and acts as a mechanism for harmonious coexistence. And moreover, the right to breathe well is intrinsically interconnected with the rights and well-being of all life and our planet. As we wend our way through the adventure in the pages of this book, I dare hope we will experience unions of science and soul, methodology and creativity, maps and uncharted territory, boundaries and boundlessness, trauma and resiliency, body and spirit, heart and head, and self and other. I hope that we will be inspired to re-envision a humanity that centers breathing. Because in the end, this is all about love. All our efforts are, at core, the desire to love, to be loved, to be love, and to be the creativity to which love gives birth. And breathing is not only what makes all this possible, it is a universal vehicle for its actualization and full flowering. And we are all breathing together right now. Because we were born wired to breathe, and we were born wired to love. And when you and I emerged into this world, our first action was to breathe, to inhale and exhale, setting into motion everything that we were at that moment, our capacity to love and our potential. We are all united through sharing that initiation, the first breath. And with optimal conditions, every cell, every instinct, need, desire, sensation, feeling, awareness, and possibility for us can be activated in the first breath. And then in each subsequent breath, our potential is given the opportunity to be energized, nourished, and embodied. Every breath of every one of us carries this aspiration to breathe, live, grow, express love, create, and experience meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. In fact, the true measure of the profound, perhaps never-ending implications of the first breath and every breath thereafter is still vastly unrecognized and underutilized in our world today. We have an incomparable treasure chest, a comprehensive medicine chest within our physical chest. It is likely the most important nutrient, medicine, healer, friend, teacher, lover, and partner of our lives. Perhaps the ultimate modality for healing and transformation, personally, relationally, and collectively. We need not engage nor believe the rich tapestry of spiritual teachings about breathing to experience conscious breathing's complete contribution to our well-being and flowering. Whatever our philosophical or spiritual orientation, agnosticism, theism, atheism, nature-based, scientific, secular, religious, we are all unified through breathing. All animals, except Salmonella, breathe and turn oxygen into energy. And all plant life, mushrooms and mycelium, participate in Earth's oxygen cycle. We are all held by the same vessel, a constantly evolving and emerging work of art, a creation of venerable nature metamorphosing all living things in each moment through breathing. Oxygen is an abundant substance in the Earth's land, seas, and air, and it is the third most abundant substance in the universe. And when we breathe, we are touching a substance that readily connects everything on Earth and dynamically interacts with the entire universe. The implications here are profound. And lastly, in this section, I'd like to read to you the Universal Breathing Declaration and share with this group of people, that is the community of the book launch, that a website is being created that will have the Universal Breathing Declaration. The first person other than myself that's going to sign it is Jack Cornfield, who partnered with me when I wrote this. And this community will, and then other people, speakers that you're hearing today will sign, and then this community will be invited, and then we will send it out to the world. So we'll be sending you the link for that website in the next week or so. And this is what it says. Breathing is life. Being grateful for our own breathing, we support the essential right of all people to breathe safely and well. We believe in co-creating a world in which all people, all breathers, have the freedom to breathe and share healthy air. We commit to collectively explore and support healthy breathing for all, so that individuals, families, communities, and our collective life can thrive, and we can share our gifts with one another. The world itself breathes, as everything participates in the oxygen cycle. Being conscious and reverent about our shared breathing, we move from separateness to community, to interconnection, wholeness, and love. We acknowledge the responsibility to care for the sustainability, health, and beauty of our planet. We honor and support all people's breathing, including their first and last breaths. We support clean, healthy air in every space on Earth. We support beneficial treatment and compassionate care for respiratory challenges and all illnesses. We dedicate ourselves to removing the barriers to safe, optimal breathing and ending the suffering due to ecological imbalance, violence, war, marginalization, economic deprivation, or injustice. We dedicate ourselves to the well-being of our ecosystems and to all that breathe within them, the humans, other animals, plant life, and all beings. Remembering this, we will take time to consciously breathe every day with gratitude. And we will recall our commitment to respect and support the right of all to breathe safely and well. May we benefit from the power of our individual and collective breathing and care for this breathing earth. We can breathe the world. So Lauren, I believe that Dawn will now introduce
Jim Morningstar. Jim Morningstar, PhD, is a licensed clinical psychologist and pioneer in therapeutic breathwork, integrating psychotherapy and biospiritual energetics since the 1970s. He founded Transformations and the School of Integrative Psychology. He created a comprehensive breathworker training program in 1990, and Jim has authored several influential books on breathwork and healing. As co-president of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance with Jessica Dibb, Jim has helped establish ethics and training standards that guide practitioners worldwide. Jim?
Thank you, Dawn. In Jessica's first section of Breathwork and Psychotherapy, Discovering is one of the most comprehensive compilations of theory and application of breathwork. It's a roadmap for the breath. In her second section, practicing is an operations manual for effective use of breathing techniques in therapy. In the third section, Expanding, is an exploration of the potential future for breathwork in the world. In short, it's an encyclopedic summary of breathwork techniques, a brilliant synthesis of breathwork's history, and development and intriguing prospects for its future growth. For me, however, the whole book is greater than the sum of its parts. Greater value lies in between the lines on the pages. My contention is that breathwork and psychotherapy is a major contribution to the next stage of consciousness growth on our planet. Consciousness advances in the human collective through the universal breath of expansion and compression. Expansion takes in greater awareness of and information. Compression brings together collective awareness and sharpens and exacts from it universal principles, which allow the collective and the individual to operate more effectively and efficiently. Consciousness has continually expanded and compressed on our planet over thousands of years. What we have at our disposal now is much greater than what we had 2,000 years ago. Well, of course, the operative point is how we use it. This is where breathwork and psychotherapy shines. Simply put, consciousness is merely certainty and understanding, which bring both clarity and passion to life, which brings understanding and focus to living, and leads to the soul's true knowing. To me, this is the ultimate goal of breathwork. It has been the greater good that I have experienced in my use of it in psychotherapy since the mid-1970s, bringing clients to a greater sense of wholeness and self-acceptance more quickly and lastingly than years of analyzing their issues. Breathwork and psychotherapy, if you read between the lines, you'll sense Jessica's highest intent for the well-being of all, demonstrated by a compassion embracing all of humanity in a way that elevates the consciousness of all. This does not take some esoteric understanding of universal mysteries. It takes the courage and the simplicity of listening to and immersing oneself in the rainbow bridge of the breath, which unites the universe in its one inhale and exhale, and therein is a repository of universal wisdom right under our nose. Thank you, Jessica, for fulfilling the mission of a scholar and a mystic in this one volume.
Well, thank you, Jim, for being my partner in bringing the power of breathwork to the world. I am profoundly grateful and breathe with you every day with gratitude. So the second reading, everybody, is our little pieces, just a few, that have to do with the power of breathwork. And there is so much in this book. We look at the spectrum of breathwork practices and break it down into 5 groups. There are examples of each of the kinds of breathing that can happen in those 5 groups, and there are stories of what can happen. There is science that goes with each one of them. There's philosophy, there's poetry, there's inspiration, and there's practicum. There's like what you can do for yourself every day. But just to read a few paragraphs. Until recently, the breathwork field has largely been perceived as merely complementary, even lightweight or too far out, and adjunctive certainly to mainstream, holistic, and even integrative medicine. Yes, breathwork supports other healing modalities superbly, yet I and countless others have also observed breathwork as a primary modality that sometimes actually cures physical and psychological ailments. And thus I'm inspired to help accelerate public awareness about breathwork and the creation of jobs for breath workers in hospitals, medical offices, schools, universities, and other public venues. We can envision a culture and build it, a human culture that centers breathing. My work at Inspiration Consciousness School and Community for over 3 decades has informed the viability of this vision. We have cultivated a principle and practice of breathers opening to expanded states of consciousness in classes as short as 4 hours, followed promptly by trips to museums, malls, hospitals, libraries, and parks to practice integrating these expanded states of consciousness into ordinary settings. We then debrief these experiences and address questions and concerns. And after an additional immersion into expanded states, participants go to their homes and work as electricians, physicians, teachers, parents, and so on, to practice integration through conscious breathing. Integrative breathing is a human potential practice. I was asked to teach and facilitate integrative breathing in Estonia in 2004. Estonia regained its independence without any bloodshed from the then Soviet Union in 1991 through its 4-year singing revolution. Imagine the courage and innovation and the pain of 51 years of oppression, 3 under Nazi Germany and 48 under the Soviet Union. The 100+ Estonians with whom we worked were amazingly vital, yet their lingering trauma was pervasive. They craved healing and growth. The atmosphere was imbued with vibrant life force and repressed, shackled feelings. This was uncharted territory for them. I was in awe of each participant. Our team of breath workers used these human potential breathing techniques with men, women who were bound by years of grief, confusion, rage, repression, and trauma. And yet they were hopeful and excited about new pathways for living. The atmosphere was electric. Within a week, teenagers to elders were laughing, dancing, expressing feelings, crying and laughing, and experiencing vitality and spontaneity they described as completely novel. Some equated a single session of integrative breathing to 2 decades of therapy. Breathing practices can be grouped according to 5 primary orientations. First, relaxation, awareness, relaxation, awareness, therapeutic interventions, character building, and the cultivation of our potential. Breathing practices are identified within the group that most closely aligns with their principal intents and experiences, the ones that breathers commonly report when practicing. And while each group has a predominant aim, practices can stimulate multiple orientations concurrently, even all 5, depending on the breather experience and the breath worker's skills. A simple example is bumblebee breath, a favorite of children. The practice, while mostly relaxing and regulating, which would be group 1, can also elicit awareness of our internal state, group 2, reduce state anxiety, group 3, and develop the sense of delight or feeling empowered, group 4. Alice Krauss was a survivor of Auschwitz who lived with intense anxiety and fear. Her son Ron had found wholeness through breathwork and deeply desired healing for his mother. She had never shared her story of Auschwitz with anyone and refused to talk about it. After 2 years, Ron gently encouraged her to come talk with me, and she finally came for him, as she said in a quote. The first 20 to 30 minutes were a polite détente with occasional flashes of connection around our shared caring for Ron. She steadfastly maintained that she had never talked to anyone about Auschwitz, and it was not going to happen with me. I simply breathed deeply and acknowledged her right to refuse to share. I assured her I knew that anyone who had not been there could never truly understand her experience. And when I sensed that she felt heard, I would say something like, "That's so meaningful. Can we just pause so I can breathe deeply and really feel this?" And then she would breathe deeply with me for that one breath. We kept politely inquiring of each other, occasionally with intense flashes of eye gazing, speaking caringly about Ron as I was acknowledging her capacities. And upon her requests, I shared about suffering in my own life. And through it, every 2 to 5 minutes, we would breathe a deep breath together. Something began to happen. She started breathing more than one deep breath at a time. And at some point, I instinctively lay down on the mat while she sat in a rocking chair, it was usually the other way around in that room. And Alice Krauss told me her story of surviving Auschwitz. We spent almost 3 hours together. It is one of the most sacrosanct memories of my life. She even smiled afterwards and told me she was glad that she had come. A few years later, when movie producer Steven Spielberg's team was interviewing Holocaust survivors, Alice Krauss was able to contribute her story. She never talked about her experience other than during that breathwork session and in the Shoah interview, which is still up on their website. And I think I will leave it there.
Thank you, Jessica. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mary Blue. Mary is a retired neuroscientist and medical educator from the Kennedy Krieger Institute and Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. She is a Global Professional Breathwork Alliance certified breathwork practitioner and a Shift Network certified Enneagram teacher. Mary co-authored the 4th chapter of the book with Jessica, bringing together her scientific background and her passion for consciousness practices. She now lives in Minerva, New York, in the Adirondacks. Mary?
Oh, let's receive our breath. I feel such gratitude today for the opportunity and privilege to have co-written this chapter titled The Mystical Science of Breathing, Cellular Respiration, and Consciousness. Breathing. I would like to begin by, wanted to time myself here, by beginning with expressing gratitude to Jack Feldman at UCLA, who shared his incredible respiratory physiology expertise with us and was pivotal in creating diagrams for the neuromuscular circuitry for the process of inhalation and exhalation. And from Hopkins, Dr. Larry Sham for sharing his expertise about the autonomic nervous system and introducing us to the wonders of the vagus nerve, and David Linden for discussions about consciousness. I also want to thank the many, and I'm going to name Jamie Kaufman, Rachel Pitts, and Sarah Vance-Griever for their help with the more technical aspects of this chapter. This chapter describes 12 physiological functions of breathing that are working together to expand our appreciation of breathing's power, intelligence, and magic. So this extends from cellular respiration all the way up to consciousness and the effects of our microbiome and environment on us. For example, did you know the lungs' magic of infusing and energizing the bloodstream, and then all our cells occur in a very small 1/100th of an inch air sac called an alveolus at the tips of our bronchioles. We have about 500 million that, if spread in a single sheet, would be the size of a fourth of a tennis court. Really amazing. On a personal note, Jessica and I have known each other for many decades. I was among the first of her breathwork clients in Baltimore, and among the first to also participate in the courses that she's offered over these past decades. As a breathwork practitioner, Jessica has a steadfast belief in the essence of all her clients and has helped thousands of us to live and experience a much fuller life. She never gives up on any of us. Also, although sometimes we give up on ourselves. This is also true for her teaching. She sets a high bar for herself and for her students. She is a brilliant teacher and skillfully communicates her extensive knowledge gathered from many sources. This book reflects that knowledge. It is an incredible resource for breathworkers, psychotherapists, ministers, and anyone interested in the many facets of breathing. It is truly wonderful to have the information that Jessica has shared over the years, all in one book. This book is a true labor of love. And the labor was long and required strength and endurance and patience for all involved. I am so glad to proclaim, Jessica, you did it. And I had a story to share, but I'm going to, if time allows later, I'll share it. Thank you.
Mary, thank you so much. I just want everyone to know that Mary helped me fulfill a dream that I had had since the inception of this book. And, you know, you're going to meet Dr. Dan Siegel in a little bit. And Dan agreed to do the foreword for this book 11 years ago and held faithful. And during that whole time, I had this dream that I could create a science chapter for breathwork that would not be, oh, just about the vagal nerve or just about the autonomic nervous system or just about, you know, a few little things, but would take these 12 elements of breathing and put them all together and end with a mystical science-based meditation at the end, where in one breath you can feel all those different processes going on. So Mary, you know, thank you so much for being in that journey as we made sure what we were doing was science-based, completely evidence-based, and yet it was speaking to the potential of what breathing could do. And I would like at this time to acknowledge a few other people that are on this session today, or they may be here right now, or they'll be here at some point, or were here at some point. So if you could bring up that first slide for me, Lauren, thank you. Just very quickly to let you know some other people who are on here who you may want to know about and are part of our community of that went into this book. Aludari Bernard is an amazing young man who wrote a book called Breathing with Orisha, which is about the African origins and power of breath work, and it is absolutely a game-changing book. Petri Bernstein, philosopher and breath worker, a true philosopher, who wrote a book called, or edited a book called Atmospheres of Breathing, which is profound and has, you know, readings or, essays by many different philosophers about the actual breathing, what breathing is and what it is philosophically. I've lost my screen here. That's why yeah, there we go. Binny Dansby is a Global Professional Breathwork Alliance board member and a founding board member of that. And she is the founder of Source Breathwork. Viola Edward is also a board member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, and she is a extraordinaire breathwork and trainer and coach trainer. Sharon Ellsbury is the Global Outreach Director of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance and is helping to create the Universal Breathing Declaration website, which is so beautiful. It's amazing. Mariah Eppies is on this call, and she is the managing editor at Norton. And this book would not be in your hands today without her skillful facilitation when I had to edit this book in many different ways to get it into the form that it is. She was patient, she was kind, she was informative, she was enthusiastic, and I'm always going to be grateful to you, Mariah. Dr. Jack Feldman, as Mary mentioned, is on here. He is a UCLA neuroscientist, highly awarded. He discovered the pre-Botzinger complex in the brainstem, which is where we all know now that breathing originates from, and his generosity and his conversations with Mary and I, and the amazing diagrams you guys have to see in this book that were the three of us working together to create these diagrams that show what happens in a single breath, biologically, neurologically. Courtney Force is on here. She is helping to create a breathwork summit that will happen September 26th through 28th. I feel very privileged to be a speaker on that breathwork summit, and this book will be featured. Laura Fox is on here. She was the person who taught me that pruning, because as Dan likes to mention often, I wrote 1,700 pages originally, and in the getting it down to 400 for all of you would not have happened without Laura Fox showing me that pruning could be a wonderful thing. She's an extraordinary editor if you need one. Alicia Hayda is on here. She is from Poland, a psychotherapist, a certified breath worker. She is doing amazing research into breathwork and oncology and having tremendous results. I feature her in the book with some of her theories about emotional expression and healing through breathwork. Peter Litchfield is on here. Peter is also an advisory member on the advisory council of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, and he's the president of Breathing Behavioral Sciences and many other morphs of that particular wording. Peter is the guy that I go to when I want to make sure that I am not being airy-fairy about the science, because he believes in expanded states of consciousness that are scientifically grounded. So Joy Meisen is from Norton. She's from the marketing team. She's a very encouraging, uplifting, responsive member of the team that's trying to help get this book out in the world. And when we get towards the end of this, these speakers and these readings, we'll tell all of you how you can help with that. Dr. Ela Manga is an extraordinary physician from South Africa who is also an advisory member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance and started Breathwork Africa and has a method called Numanity Breathwork, which is profound, which uses 7 principles or threads of indigenous African culture in the breathwork. Tilka Platil-Dur, one of my longtime colleagues, a founding member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, board member and now on the advisory board, and a breathwork trainer and supervisor for decades who we all deeply respect. She has her own book that she wrote called something like Breathwork and Integrative something. I'm so sorry, Tilka, I don't have it in front of me. Rachel Pitts, I haven't seen you in a while. I know you're on here. Rachel listened to me speak aloud the words of this book more than anybody else. She took dictation for me more hours than we could possibly count. And she also cared about the content and the quality. And this book would not be here without her. Mary Rawlinson took over from Rachel when Rachel had a new addition, a child to their family. And Mary has been an extraordinary partner and friend, listening to my concerns. She's a minister herself and a really good academic writer, and has given me incredible feedback and helped put this event together. Sandra and Marcus Ray. Sandra Ray has probably done more breathwork sessions, facilitated more breathwork sessions than anybody on this planet, you guys. She's generally considered by many to be the mother of breathwork, but why she is important for this book is because before Sandra pulled me out of my mystical cave and put me on the global scene, which she forced me to do, I just want you guys to know she literally pulled me out and forced me to make a presentation on the global scene. And otherwise, I'd still probably be in my little mystical cave. So thank you, Sandra. Gretchen Steidel is on here. She is the director of an amazing new project at the Garrison Institute that is showing how presence and, presence practices and the kind of practices that we all do can make a difference with social change and can help social change organizations and system change. And she and I are now partnering to have breath work and breathing be a part of a facet that we're studying about that. And lastly, Alice Wells, an extraordinary breath worker who was trained here and was the senior supervisor for breathwork trainees for years, and is now a board member of the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. So I wanted to make those. And if there's somebody else on here like that I didn't say who you were, I apologize. I definitely recognize you. You're probably in the acknowledgements of the book. But what I would like to do now is do the third reading, which is about breath workers and psychotherapists and integrating breathwork and psychotherapy. And mostly it's about elevating the standards by which breathwork and psychotherapy are practiced individually and together. Okay. The vocations of breath workers, psychotherapists, and other healing professionals who work with people's inner landscapes are among the most inspiring in the world, and they deserve the most cutting-edge transformative tools on the planet. I presented integrative breathing at the Psychotherapy Network Conference 6 times between 2006 and 2019. 3,000 to 4,000 deeply earnest healers attended those groundbreaking conferences. 2 lasting impressions reverberate. First, psychotherapists yearn to relieve people's suffering and support them in manifesting meaningful relationships, vocations, and lives. And secondly, about 75% of the psychotherapists who participated in the breathwork workshop reported that it was the single most transformative experience for them at the conference. My work at Inspiration Consciousness School and community for over 3 decades has informed, oh, I already read that part in another part, so I will move on to another thing. Apologies. To help professionalize and expand the breathwork field, it was exhilarating to upgrade breathwork facilitator training at Inspiration and develop ethical standards for breathworkers. I discovered a kindred vision in psychologist breathworker Jim Morningstar, and at the 2001 Global Inspiration Conference, we were given a vote of confidence by 60 breathwork trainers and breathworkers from 5 continents to initiate and co-direct a new organization, the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. This organization has become the gold standard for providing ethics and training standards for breathwork worldwide, developing a cutting-edge, in-depth program for training breathworkers at Inspiration, guiding the GPBA, and creating conferences that brought together breathwork teachers, researchers, and practitioners who were creating powerful applications, helped stimulate significant shifts within the breathwork field, as well as public perception about breathwork. These experiences have amplified my visions about breathwork's value to collective humanity. We have learned about breathwork's potential to facilitate full spectrum healing, transformation, and growth, somatic, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual wholeness. Therapists, breathworkers need to be able to facilitate bio-individualized breathwork, conscious responsive breathing, full spectrum healing, and expanded states of consciousness, and also be essential workers that can support breathers in times of trauma, medical situations, mental health crises, or collective disasters. Indeed, communities and cultures throughout the world are expressing interest in breathwork. Over time, they are likely to see the immense value of including therapist breathworkers in all of our social structures and processes for humanity's well-being and quality of life. By staffing well-trained, certified, experienced breathworkers into healthcare settings, schools, workplaces, community centers, fire departments, police departments, gyms, art and theater venues, birthing rooms, end-of-life rooms, and more, we will enhance physical, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual well-being, prevent many physical and mental health challenges, support relational well-being and cooperation, inspire and foster creativity, nourish spiritual growth, create new pathways for breathers to contribute to our collective well-being, and engender respect and care for all life on our planet. And therefore, here is my idea of an expanded standard curriculum and training period that includes commitment to daily breathing practice and self-development, all GPBA, that's the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, training modules, content, and commitment to ethical standards, significant practice in all 5 breathwork groups and mastery in 1 or more, basic breathing science and human anatomy proficiency, understanding physiological, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual impacts of breathwork, ability to facilitate focus, emotional expression, and integration, ability to do our own inner work, including boundaries and boundlessness, ability to facilitate inner work, to do conscious responsive breathing for long periods of time, training or licensure in temperament, attachment, trauma, interpersonal neurobiology, object relations, othering, which is marginalization, colonization, diversity, equity and inclusion, and belonging, birth, death, neurodiversity, sexual awareness and well-being, some knowledge about mental health and medical conditions, especially lung, heart, neurologic, and medications, basic emergency medical response, including CPR, first aid, and seizure training, and disaster response training. And finally, when I was 17, I had an experience that imprinted my soma and psyche with the powerful alignment when life's forces intelligent meets an optimal and attuned environment. To this day, I am taught by the priceless memory. I was in a group traveling towards Badrinath Temple, 10,170 feet into the Himalayas. The winding, exhilarating, and terrifying 1.5-lane dirt road dropped straight down the mountain on one side and straight into the fortress-like mountain contours on the other. We paused halfway up the mountain to practice pranayama while immersed in near frozen glacial water and arrived at Badrinath's summit close to sundown. Almost everyone shed joyous tears upon discovering that we each had a wonderful wooden platform bed with 3 outrageously thick wool blankets. We wanted to burrow ourselves under those blankets without emerging, and yet our teacher urged us to move toward the temple and central hot springs that steamed like Yellowstone's Old Faithful. It gave one marked pause to consider getting close. I watched one of our companions' life force revealed in all of its splendor as she moved with uncharacteristic speed and grace towards the hot springs, shedding the heavy shawls atop her sari like a romantic slow motion scene from a movie. Without hesitation, without even testing the water, she slipped her entire body into the steaming hot waters, as if dropping onto the most comfortable, cloud-like mattress on the planet. The rest of us took anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes to work our body into this extremely hot pool. This land was novel terrain for all of us, and yet the life force within her body knew that these particular waters were a safe healing sanctuary that would relieve her arthritis. When her needs were met by the environment, it was safe to let her life force lead. I have never forgotten the testimony of our life instinct's brilliance and beauty. Often viewed by others as plain looking and clumsy, she became radiantly beautiful and nimble instantaneously. We might never have seen who or what she could reveal, what she was truly at her core. I am forever inspired to become an attuned environment for each breather's life force, to honor the wisdom of their authentic life urge within their ways of being.
It's now my honor to introduce to you Dr. Dan Siegel, who is clinical professor of psychiatry at the UCLA School of Medicine, founding co-director of the Mindful Awareness Research Center, and executive director of the Mindsight Institute. A visionary pioneer of interpersonal neurobiology, Dan Siegel's the best-selling author of The Developing Mind, Aware, and The Whole Brain Child. His latest book, Personality and Wholeness in Therapy, integrates his interpersonal neurobiology framework with the Enneagram's 9 developmental patterns, marking a bold new synthesis in clinical practice. As the author of the foreword for Jessica's book, Dan Siegel brings a unique bridge between cutting-edge science and compassionate, inner-centered wisdom. Dan?
Thank you, Dawn. And thank you, Jessica, for inviting us all to be here with you at this exciting moment of the birth of your wonderful, wonderful book, which is really, I agree, a labor of love. And thank you all for being here. In these couple of minutes, what I just like to say is just, I, like has been expressed by the other speakers, feel so much gratitude, Jessica, to you for bringing these incredible worlds together. And I think from the point of view of interpersonal neurobiology, what I want to point out is one fundamental conceptual view that I tried to express in the foreword, which is that, as my dear friend and our wonderful poet, John O'Donohue, used to say, you know, when he would call our workshop participants that we teach together mystics. And I said, John, you know, what is a mystic? And he would say, it's someone who believes in the reality of the invisible. So I said to John, which I'll share with all of you, is that to be a true scientist is really to embrace the fact that the eyes can only see a limited segment of reality, and that not everything we imagine is true, but that much of what's true is not within our eyesight. And so then if being a mystic is embracing the reality of that, then that's what it means to be a truly disciplined person studying reality. So what I suggested in the foreword and what I think is coming up today is this idea that the reader of this book is given a challenge, because the book in some ways is an incredible gift to the field of mental health, as well as anyone related to that area of helping people grow. So education, parenting, organizational functioning. And when we see that the book is asking us to embrace the spiritual dimensions, that is the dimension of things that have meaning beyond just surviving and connection beyond just the limits of our skin and case bodies, that notion of spirituality and its connection to mysticism invites us to really feel into a different way of experiencing the world. So in indigenous teachings for thousands of years, there's been that invitation. Contemplative practices have taught that as well. And I think science is just catching up by realizing that there needs to be a dissolution between what was a false separation of spirituality and science. And so this book invites that. And, you know, the breath has all these dimensions that Mary, you talked about, and Jessica in the book so beautifully come up. For the reader, even just to think at the simplest level, that the breath is both inside the body and is shared with the world outside the body. And that inner versus outer distinction that the breath requires that we start becoming aware of from the very beginning is also an invitation to look at what is often an unrecognized master narrative in modern times in the cultures that we call individualistic, of which the United States is kind of a pioneer. And when you study mental health, it is directly inversely correlated with individualism. In other words, the more individualistic a culture, the more mental suffering exists. So the breath is a really powerful place to begin for anyone interested in cultivating well-being, because it reminds you that there's something that is both within and between. This me and this we is one way I like to think of it, as a we. And so the breath is this we experience in its fundamental nature. The other thing that, of the many, many, many things that the breath does, is that it allows us to see that you can have a life of breathing, which is one thing, but breath practices involve a number of things, but one of the things it involves is awareness of the breath. So this shift from just breathing to being aware of the breath invites us to think about what in the world is awareness. And in that quest to understand awareness, I think this book really gives the reader this incredible invitation to dive into the possibility that awareness is actually not something that is built by the brain, as neuroscience often takes that point of view, but instead that it is something that may, in fact, as some very rigorous physicists and neuroscientists are beginning to consider, that it's fundamental to the universe. And that if you're born into a body, your nervous system, including the brain and the head, is merely a conduit that allows this aspect, I'll suggest to you, of energy flow to pass through you. And so you are not constructing awareness, you are experiencing awareness. And this shift, I think, Jessica, you beautifully bring up in the book. You talk about, you know, this proposal of the plane of possibility, which is this idea that fits with indigenous teachings and contemplative teachings, that consciousness, the awareness, knowing part of consciousness, is actually emerging from a plane of possibility. And so when you practice breath awareness, it is then resonating with other kinds of mindfulness practices or consciousness expanding practices, where you're having people drop beneath the lie of the separate self, entering the ceaseless flow of the breath while this body is alive, and then entering the consciousness that links us all through the plane of possibility. So in reading the book, I was just so thrilled that you could take those 1,700 pages and prune them down with people who love you's help to bring it down to a reader bite size, not the 30-second little videos people want us to do these days, but an actual book, you know, which is great. But the take-home message is a bite-sized message, you know, that the breath invites us to experience the connection through awareness that is really consonant with the thing that seems to be emerging from all these studies, which is that love is the fabric of the universe, and that breath awareness simply drops you into that reality and lets you free yourself from the lies of separation that get fostered so much. So thank you, Jessica. Thank you for this opportunity to gather as a community. And thank you all for being here. It's really an honor to be a part of this wholeness.
Well, Dan, thank you. It's an honor to have you as a part of this wholeness and all the ways that you contribute to our community constantly getting inspired to move towards wholeness. And thank you for keeping the faith that you would get to write that forward someday and write such a comprehensive and deep one, a one that I know you took a lot of time with. And I'm just noticing, everybody, that we've entered into a timeless space. We're on schedule somewhere in the universe, but right, we're a little bit past where we would have gone. So I'm going to kind of just move things ahead a little bit because we want to have one more reading and hear from Russ, and then talk a little bit about some ways that you can help bring the power of this book out into the world. Then I'm going to stay on for an extra half an hour for those of you that can. And I will lead a breathing practice during that time of about 5 minutes to 7 minutes. And then I will do more questions and answers. I love to answer your questions. So, but I'm just going to do a very short reading here that's a little bit, because Dan talked about it and Mary talked about it too, about consciousness and breathing. And let's see. The authentic self is a radiant emanation of essential life force, imbuing every conscious breath. It is an unadulterated expression of our core being beneath the layers of conditioned concepts, trauma-driven defenses, and ego-driven behaviors. Through conscious breathing's potency, we can relax into the truth of our authentic self, discovering a wellspring of liberation, self-acceptance, and peace. It's a journey of courage, compassion, and presence, guided by a breathing wisdom, leading us to boundless dimensions of our being and the interconnectedness of all life. Breathwork draws us to our origins and the mysteries of life. Whether we are atheists, agnostics in a particular religion, on a spiritual path, or mystically inclined in general, the more we engage in breathwork, the more likely we will encounter transpersonal, spiritual, and mystical dimensions. Spontaneous visions are not uncommon. Even those who thought they had life figured out may wonder anew about the nature of existence. We may experience a sense of greater wisdom about our lives, and we may divine possibilities that seemed previously unimaginable. Many describe these experiences as essence, God, goddess, the divine creation, or any name we use to convey something consciously generating, informing, and holding the fabric of existence. Experiences in breathwork can be so resplendent and transcendent that whether we identify secularly, religiously, or spiritually, we all may call them sacred. These moments are so remarkably sublime and fulfilling that we are transported into some degree of profound gratitude and reverence. Whatever the tenor of the mystical experiences, it is the place where separation, the veil between form and formlessness, everything and everything dissolves into the plane of possibility. Together, breathwork and psychotherapeutic wisdom can support these luminous, joyous, and sometimes harrowing transpersonal and spiritual sojourns. By integrating psychotherapy's evolving understanding of structures and processes that facilitate well-being with breathwork's ability to move into the boundless and transcendent, we can co-create safe healing processes for personal and collective wholeness and sacredness. Practicing conscious breathing throughout the entire day will build our capacity to receive essence in every moment, in every place, with every person, in every situation. Breathing is union, continuously in every moment. Each breath is a discovery of how to enter that union from a new place and how to enhance that union so that our temple expands. We open and respond to the call of the source of life, respond to the vibration of creation itself as our North Star, simultaneously releasing our grasp on anything needing to be a certain way, knowing there is a possibility in every moment, living and breathing in the experience that all are held, all are cherished, all are beloved.
We now call upon the wise and wonderful Russ Hudson, one of the world's foremost teachers and developers of the Enneagram personality typology. Since 1991, Russ has been writing and teaching full-time, co-authoring 5 best-selling books with Don Richard Riso, including The Wisdom of the Enneagram. Together, they also created the Riso-Hudson Enneagram Type Indicator, now a standard assessment in the field. He's a longtime collaborator and co-teacher with Jessica Dibb in Enneagram-based programs that use breath work and are dedicated to consciousness and awakening. Russ is also co-founder of the Enneagram Institute, a founding director of the International Enneagram Association, and he currently leads Russ Hudson Consulting. A graduate of Columbia University, Russ is not only a sought-after speaker at leading retreat centers and conferences worldwide, but also a brilliant teacher whose depth, humor, and humanity make him an absolute joy to work with. Russ?
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to be very focused because this is we're running out of time and we have all the time in the world. So both are true. So I think I'll break this into 2 elements to speak about. First, just a little bit about what does this have to do with the Enneagram, which many people might ask. And the second part is about Jessica and the journey of writing this book. First part, many people studying the Enneagram do not understand why this funny symbol's there. And it isn't just a tic-tac-toe board. It isn't a filing system for human beings. It's meant to invite us back into the dynamism of life. And the symbol is meant to represent that. I learned the Enneagram through the Gurdjieff work, through dance, through Gurdjieff movements. And the idea was, and even the term, our Enneagram types were originally called fixations. It means how we go from being stuck back into the dynamism and flow of reality. In my experience, the quickest route, the most sure route to do that is breath. As Jess has said many times, breath is this marvelous intersection between what we are as awareness, timelessness, what Dr. Dan was talking about a few moments ago, and what we are as living organisms, part of a dynamic and ever-changing world. And we're both. Breath is the place where those meet. So when I was working with Don Riso many years ago, we introduced breath work as part of our training program. And Jessica and I did many, many workshops and programs over the years where we integrated the Enneagram teaching with various kinds of breath work. Jessica knows more than one kind. So I just wanted to say a little bit about that. Breath has to do with the law of 7, has to do with the law of 3, in breath and out breath. And what's that moment in between? There are many things we can discover through breath. As for Jess, I've been Jess's friend and ally in this book for many years and months. I've seen her go through the ups and downs of writing a book. I've seen her just not giving up. I've seen her maintaining the highest standards. Jess knew She wanted to bring something extraordinary to really, as we say in the Gurdjieff work and in the Enneagram, she wanted to strike a dough in terms of the potential awareness of breath. She also has beautifully merged, as both Dan and Jim were saying, the scientific and the medical and practical with the metaphysical, with the spiritual, in a way that makes sense, that you can read the book and follow through with that and really understand it. I was very, very, very impressed with this book when I read it, and I still am, and I think it's going to have a big impact. The other thing I'd say quickly, I want to just, while we're here, give a thanks to Saul Mendlowitz, Jessica's dad. Some of you were lucky enough to know him. But I think good old Saul was a brilliant, brilliant guy, and instilled in Jessica from the beginning of her life this inquiry and this sense of not being satisfied with set things and going into a deeper, deeper understanding. One thing you could always count on with Saul, he was going to ask questions. And my goodness, that is such a powerful part of this whole orientation. Jessica would not have written this book without her ongoing dedication, curiosity, and willingness to find out a bigger picture of what this all is. So I want to thank him. I also want to thank her sister, Martha, for all the ways she supported Jessica. It was a long journey getting this done. Now, I'm sure Jessica might say something about that too, but I wanted to say it. So there you go. And just to take in what it takes to birth a book like this into the world. It's not a small thing. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of compassion. Sometimes we have to bear our own shortcomings in ways that are difficult. And I just salute Jess. She made it through. She did it. We have the book now. Hallelujah. And I think there was in editing it down from that 1,700 pages, there's probably a couple other books in there waiting to come forward. So we will wait for those. But I think that's a good place for me to stop so that we have a little time left at the end. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Russ. And as I've been thanking each person that's spoken, you have absolutely championed me writing this book since really the beginning. But like my father, similar to that, you have an inquiring mind. And I think that the readers of this book can thank you that your voice was always there for me, that I wanted to pick the exact right word that meant exactly what I meant it to say because of my conversations with you. And, you know, you're a great word meister, and there's so much more I could say, but people can read about that in the acknowledgements about all of these people. So I'm very grateful, and I do want to try to bring something to the community that's here. First of all, I didn't notice that when I was reading the acknowledgements thing, out of my screen for some reason, I left out 3 names. I want to mention them because I believe Lavinia Hardy is on here. And Lavinia is this beautiful woman that lives in the UK. And she won't mind me saying that she has been on this good green earth for over 8 decades. And when she started doing a course with Dan and I called Breathwork for Human Potential, she had experienced some lifelong depression and didn't really have a sense that that wouldn't be the case, and was absolutely astounded that through the course, she started to feel an experience of not being depressed and of connecting with other people more fully and connecting with all life in the way that I talked about in the very beginning. And she drew a beautiful painting called Breath of God, and it's at the top of chapter 7. And when you guys read chapter 7, it's 11 breathwork practices for daily living, and that cover the whole spectrum of physical, emotional, cognitive, and spiritual growth. And you have Lavinia to thank for that, because of her journey, I understood the value of those 11 techniques that I taught with that Dan was also in that course. And so just a huge kudos to her. Rabbi Hayek is on here, I think. And just to say that he is the man that had the vision that I still share. I support his vision that someday 1 billion people will breathe together synchronously. And he has a website called Do As One, where you can breathe in the universal breathing room all at the same time. And he helped me create, he and Jim and Petri and I created what is now being used as the standard definition for breath work and breath worker. That was our little work group. And then lastly, and I don't know, I mean, this is why I realized somebody had been left off, is Dr. Pippa Wiebel. Okay, is this person anyway? I mean, is there any breathwork organization on the planet that she hasn't somehow contributed to? An incredible physician in the UK, and a certified breath worker, and she contributes to the International Breathwork Foundation, to the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, to Transformational Breath. But more than that, she is my friend and colleague. And she read at the last minute every medical piece I put in this book and vetted it for me and helped me if I needed to evolve it. And we talked through everything. And I'm just profoundly grateful to her. And I also, if you could pull up that slide, Lauren, of my father, I also wanted to acknowledge my family book writing team. Russ has done part of it for me, because he acknowledged my sister, Martha Matt, who took care of my father with me together so that I could write the book, who made countless trips from Connecticut, even in the middle of the night, often driving overnight, cleaned my house at times, got me food. And more than that, she knows something about writers and editors, having been in relationships with a few of them. And she actually was an amazing writing coach. My son, Joshua Dibb, who is a musician, knows something about the creative process. And he talked me through many dark nights of the soul. And I will always be grateful to you, Josh, for that, as well as your practical support. I would say more about both of you, but I want to get on to the rest of this too, which is to my father, which Russ has mentioned. My father willingly or unwillingly practiced breathing exercises every day, you guys, until he was over 99, when he took his last breath peacefully off of this planet. And I do dedicate this book to him. He was also a bridger of visions and academics, of grounded, practical social activism and utopian ways of thinking. He has inspired countless people on this planet that it might be possible for humanity to have a world without war, the abolition of war. And he has certainly inspired me, and he managed to stay alive until the weekend that I turned in the book. And I think that's because he wanted it to happen so badly. And so now, and I will, as I said, I will stay on until the top of the hour and do a breathing exercise and answer questions. But I think Dawn was going to come on with me and say something about how all of you could help spread the power of the book. Yeah.
Jessica, just a word before the strategies for how to breathe this beautiful book into the world. It's really just been such an honor to be able to celebrate you. You are such a generous spirit in shining a spotlight on other people, such a convener of communities, such a connector in the Malcolm Gladwell sense, in the most mystical, beautiful sense of connector and creator of communities. And as a former comparative literature professor, I am blown away by the lyricism of your writing, by the beauty and generosity of what it is you've created. And the strategies that occur to me are things like gifting it forward. If you think of someone in your life who could use more peace or presence, gift them this book as a breath of fresh air. As with so many things you do, Jessica, this isn't just a book launch, it's part of a movement to awaken the world one breath at a time. And everyone here has a voice in making that happen. So spreading the word, gifting this book, singing, shouting it from the rooftops, and remembering the unifying force of breathing together that you've reminded us of.
Thank you so much, Dawn. And I think that we're going to pull up a few slides now from Lauren. And Lauren's also going to put a lot of these links in the chat for you. Everybody who's on here today, if you would like to get the book at 20% off, Norton Publishers is generously giving a 20% off and free shipping. And so that link will be, you can also take a screenshot of this if you want. If you're from the UK, Ireland, Europe, you can see some of these other places, South Africa, there's a 30% discount code from Norton. Also, we will send all of these slides to everybody that registered for this event, so that might help you as well. Next slide, Lauren. Yes, I would love your feedback, questions, ideas from reading the book. And this is an email that you can reach me at, breathworkandpsychotherapy@gmail.com. And we can be in a lively, interactive exploration, discussion, and co-creation because Dawn is so right. The truth is, this is about a movement of a world living with love. And I do believe that either on here right now or has been here most of the time, we have a beautiful woman named Scarlett Lewis, who I'll be doing a podcast with, whose son was murdered at Sandy Hook. And she started a movement in his honor. His name is Jesse, called Choosing Love. And she and I are talking about how we can choose conscious breathing and choose love. And they're really very simultaneous. So, I mean, very synchronous. So, you know, there are going to be many conversations about how we can create the world that we want through conscious breathing. You can reach me there. And then next slide. Yes, well, if you would like to study at Inspiration Consciousness School, either in breathwork training or just your own self-development, this is where you would reach us, inspirationcommunity.org. There's a new website that's being launched in about a week. So the one you go to is going to be a little bit archaic right now, but in about a week, there will be a brand new one with a lot of updates. And that's also an email to get to our office, to get to Mary Rollinson, our program coordinator. If you want to learn about the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance, where we are the gold standard for training standards and ethics for certified breathworkers, and what I'm now calling therapist breathworkers, which is psychotherapists who are certified in breathwork and breathworkers who know about psychotherapeutic understanding, all of those things that I listed, attachment and trauma and interpersonal neurobiology and all of those things. You can go to the GPBA website. Also, if you're looking for a good breath worker, these are all people that have been vetted by us. Especially Jim looks at their training, and I'm the ethical chairperson. So you can contact us there. And then the next slide. This is the part that I'm told is so important, and I don't really know that much about it, but evidently in today's world, writing a review on Amazon is one of the best ways that you can help keep this book in public view. I've heard that in the first 2 weeks, they're going to look for there to be about 100 reviews if possible. So we put a QR code here that you can get in, or we will also, I think probably Lauren put one in the chat, and we'll also send you something. So even like a one-liner just helps to kind of keep it on the map. So I got sent this today by a beautiful colleague, Ann Patricio, letting me know about this. So thank you. And I think there's one more slide. Yes, this is a graphic that, so we have a team that helped put together today. I want to acknowledge Hope Garect, who I believe is on here, Heather Davis and Mary Blue, our scientists, and also, of course, Don Eidelman, and Lauren Martin is our Zoom driver. And there we go. So big big grateful thank you to all of you for helping to make this event possible. I didn't even know I should do an event like this, and it's due to Mary Blue and Heather and Hope that it's happening at all. And then that graphic, if you can bring it back up for a minute, Lauren, that's a graphic that we'll send you the slide for it. But if you even want to take a minute right now and just take a screenshot of it, you could post that on your social media and say, I'm currently at this book launch event for this book. I highly recommend it, or whatever you want to say. And so I think it was Hope that recommended that I give you guys something that you could send out, because that will help spread the word. So thank you very much. So I'm going to formally thank everybody that's here. I know some of you, it's at the time that you may need to go. And I'm going to remind us of David Byrne's words. All I want is to breathe with you. Won't you breathe with me? And I want to say here at the culmination that this book has over 50 breathing techniques in it, that are breathing practices in it that are in all of those 5 groups: regulation and relaxation, breath awareness and mindfulness, therapeutic interventions, medically and psychologically, character development, and finally, human potential, which is the very deep kind of expanded states of consciousness breathwork. There are I haven't counted them all, but there are well over 50 practices. There's the science that goes with them. There's how you do them. There's the effects that can happen, all of that stuff that didn't get read about today. And one of the underlying all of that, unifying all of that, is the understanding that there is a greater potential for each of us individually, and there is a greater potential for us collectively, not only within our human species, but with everything, with the whole planet. Because our primitive brain, as Dan Siegel has pointed out so many times, is wired to recognize in-group and out-group for good reason. We needed to know how to protect ourselves, who we can trust and who we can't. The difficulty is that we're triggered so much now with the way that modern life is, constant cortisol from social media, from pollution, from stimulation, electronics, digital, all of it, that we are constantly scanning for in-group and out-group, not just sporadically doing that. And here's the thing, my whole life I was searching for a medicine that would be a universal key, that would allow the love that I could see each person is to come forth in the world, and allow us to build a collective love, which could be a greater steward for the generations to come and all life. And so you can make an in-group and an out-group about anything. It can be skin color, hair length, education, amount of money you have, what language you speak, what your political thoughts are, which town you literally can create an in-group and out-group about anything, except one thing. You can't create an in-group or an out-group about the group of breathers, because there's only one group of breathers, and it's all of us. And that's the movement. That is the literal game changer that could allow us, if we started at the first breath and traveled with it till the last breath, to live from a place of depth and meaning and self-development and love. And so I would like to invite you, if you're still here, to simply join me and join all of us in becoming aware of your breathing, receiving the breathing, welcoming it, allowing it to deepen, allowing the deepening of it to show you where there are tensions, where there are separations, where there is lack of integration, where there is othering of yourself or others. Allowing those to relax in each exhale, trusting the life force that is both generating your real nature and inviting you to remember your real nature. Let us breathe together for a minute. Thank you, everyone. I am breathing love with you always. And I want to thank our speakers, Jim Morningstar, Dr. Mary Blue, Dr. Jim Morningstar, Dr. Daniel Siegel, and the indomitable Russ Hudson, and thank this entire community for being here.